So we're going to do a field of flowers today, and we're going to start with just wetting. This is Arches paper, 8x8, wetting it very, very well. I accidentally hit stop record, but throw down a sky, whatever kind of sky you want. I threw in some blue, ultramarine blue, and some wisteria. I used a lot of water, maybe a little too much water here. And I'm just messing around with the sky. Getting some different colors, putting down some more of that wisteria so that it shows up more, because when it dries it's going to be lighter. And then I'm going to move into, after I'm kind of like satisfied with the sky here, I'm going to start moving into the grass. Now you can use whatever colors you like here. The idea here is that you're working very quickly while it's all wet, because you all want it to be blendy. You want that nice blendy magic to happen, and so that when it dries, it's going to be the background, essentially. If you wanted to, you could lift some areas for flowers later, but I typically don't. Sometimes I lift little areas, but here I'm just throwing it all down. And you want to use different colors of green. So I started with a light green, because that's going to be the very background. And then you're going to put like these little stems, grass. It's all going to dry and be very blurry, and so that's what you want. You kind of want the suggestion of grass, stems, and leaves. Again, vary the colors that you're using. So some light greens, some dark greens, some blue greens. Throw it down. I'm starting from the sides and going in here, and you'll see me kind of like fiddling with a little bit here and there. Again, the paper is still pretty wet, so this is gonna dry very misty. So once you're satisfied with however many blades of grass you have, or stems, or leaves, or whatever you're wanting to put down into this background, then you can start putting in some flowers. And again, when you start putting down the flowers, you're just going for different colors. Now you can see I used a little bit too much water there, and so you can see there's a little tiny bit of a bloom where the wisteria was. But that's okay. It looks like clouds. You see I'm throwing down more green. I'm trying to make it just look like vegetation. I don't want it to look too uniform. The key here is to work quickly, because it's going to dry. This is where I start putting down these long stem flowers. Again, these are the background flowers, so detail is not important here. You just want a collection of colors so that it looks like a field of wildflowers with different greens and different colors. And if you want to know what colors I'm using, it's a mixture. I've got a pink, I've got some magentas, some rose reds, just whatever colors you like. It's not really important. It's what looks good to you. And those are some violets. You want to put little teeny flowers around the foreground, around the whole area again, because you want different colors. You don't want it to look uniform. Wildflower fields are messy. Doesn't have to be perfect. You just work quickly and have fun with it. Again, you can see as soon as you put the paint down, it starts to spread because the paper is still quite damp. So this is going to be the first layer, and then we're going to let it all dry and do the second layer. You see I'm really just putting down some vegetation, so it looks like leaves and things. Now putting in the stems. All right, we let that first layer dry, and so now this is completely dry. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to put more detailed, darker flowers on top. Again, using whatever colors you would like. Do take some thought as to like what color is behind it, but just have fun with it. Again, you're not going for super realism here. It's just enjoying the process and making it look something like flowers. The good thing about this kind of painting is that while you're waiting for one area to dry, you can just move on over to a different area. Tilting the paper helps you get different angles, slants to your flowers. Make sure you're varying the colors a little bit. Just going back, putting in a little darker now that it's kind of drying, so that you're adding some dimension. Adding more dimension to the different flowers. These are mostly dry. Now I'm going to go into the foreground. I'm going to add some smaller flowers, and I'm going to use a color that's going to show up against the green. So a deeper magenta or a violet here. I'm using this sort of reddish magenta. You don't have to be very careful with your flowers. Again, they should just be the suggestion of a flower. Now let's go in and put in some stems, some greenery into our flowers. Adding leaves here are going to require a few layers because it's got to go over background colors, and watercolor is a transparent medium. So you see I start with a light green, it's a yellow green, and then I'm going to go in here, I'm just going to put in some darker colors so that those leaves show up against the background. adding some yellow flowers here. And you might think, well, you can't put yellow over green because it's lighter. And it doesn't show up particularly bright, but it is noticeable, and that's what you're going for. You're going for variety. So your eye's going to see that there's yellow there. It's going to interpret it as flowers, and that's all you're looking for. And you can see the yellow does actually show up on the green. Now this is always the scary part. I think I want a little bee here toward the center. And half the time when I try bees, they do not turn out. And then I have to cover them up with something. So my idea here is to go very small and again, not a lot of detail. I just want the eye to see it's a bee. I'm using some slightly dirty water here and I'm pulling out very lightly the Payne's Gray that I put down and making a hint of a wing there. I don't know if you can hear that background noise, but that's my dog snoring just in case. And it's all about just underdoing it with the bee. So while the bee's drying, I decided there's an open spot right here and it needs another flower. I mixed ultramarine blue and the violet, so the color is a little different. And I'm just going in here and filling in that space. Okay, our bee is dry, so now I can put in the yellow. Very tiny brush. Coming back to the bee here because he needs a little head, but I needed to let it dry. So we're putting on the little head. And we're gonna work on just a hint of the antenna and legs. I'm gonna switch out a brush for that and dip it in some slightly dirty water to pull out that color for the antenna and the legs. Now it's time to sign. I didn't want to sign in green, but my bottom right corner I got a little over enthusiastic about, so I'm gonna sign it in a slightly different spot. And I'm using a glass pen, calligraphy pen. It works really well to sign your signature. And there we go. There's our little quick, low pressure wildflower field.